Well, South Africa have done it, and who would have thought, after we all predicted this test match is only going to get more and more challenging to bat? 240 has been gunned down in what was just over 2 hours of play that we managed after rain had more to add to the drama on day four. At the Wanderers, it breaches what's been a proud record for India at the Wanderers, their first defeat against South Africa at this venue. It sets up the series wonderfully at 1-1. It has South Africa starting the year with a test win and a defeat for KL Rahul in his first test as captain, a defeat for Rahul Dravid in test matches after he's taken over as coach. So, plenty to discuss and look back upon as the classic Dean Elgar innings, if you want to call it that, has seen South Africa home. Captain's knock, and we look back at it with Sanjay Manjrekar and Daryll Cullinan on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Let's go to Daryll first up, because it's fair to say even the most optimistic of South African fans would not have seen this coming, Daryll. A 7-wicket win, nice and easy.
Well, I'm so glad I called South Africa to win the test match. So I'm pretty pleased about that, which wasn't the case. But, man, you've got to admire Dean Elgar. You know, this has now propelled him into folklore, into one of the sort of an echelon of players in terms of test cricket, just showing what it's all about and grit and determination. Very well led in that regard. But no, I think few South Africans, everyone was talking about that massive collapse coming, but he held it together, supported by Van der Dussen. And one has to say they deserved their win. I think they played the tougher, the harder cricket for all the time during this test match. And there may be a question or two with regard to India when it comes to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a question I'd love to ask Sanjay Manjrekar. This test match ebbed and flowed, Sanjay, but if I had to ask you where you think India have lost this, I wonder what the first thing that comes to mind is.
Considering, the batting lineup of South Africa, batting last in this test match, you would have thought India should have won on the last innings because of the quality of bowling attack and the experience that they have in their bowling attack. But I think the first reaction has to be well done to South Africa, well done to South African batters, because these are guys, when you look at their batting record, the last time I looked, Dean Elgar was the man with the highest batting average of 39. All the others are averaging 30. Some are trying to find their feet at the test level. And for them to chase down this kind of a target on a pitch that was a little maybe less tricky today, but first and foremost, well done to South Africa. And I just hope it gives them the optimism to stand behind the young talent that they're looking to back. And let's hope, we see the rise of South African batting after this kind of a performance.
All right, let's stick to that then before we get to India. Fair enough from Sanjay. A lot of credit to South Africa. And I wonder what this effort or this win does for them as a team, Daryll, with losing Quinton de Kock, not playing the extra bat, a team that's not known how to win as much as India have in recent times. Where would you rank this in terms of, wins for South Africa at home in recent times at least?
Well, it's been a tough time for South African cricket, particularly off the field. I think this is welcome news for everybody that's followed South African cricket, and it's been a very pessimistic time for all of us. But one has to laud the efforts of the likes of Elgar, the team itself. Yes, a memorable win, but does it ultimately mean that there's a new way forward or they turn the corner? I don't think so. It may paper over the cracks, but a win is a win. And I think that's the most important thing that they will celebrate. But the series at this stage is square. Let's not forget that if India are to win the series, a lot of serious questions will be asked. So where does it leave them? In fact, at this stage, I can't tell you conclusively, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough. Sticking with you, Daryll, how much did the weather today make South Africa's case perhaps that much easier? 120 to get. Did it all affect conditions?
I can't help thinking, with a lot of knowledge of the ground, that perhaps the rain, a bit of moisture, kept the pitch together for longer. Invariably, everyone was calling it's going to be so tough to bat, and I for one said that 220 is not going to be on. I can't help thinking that did play a role. Perhaps the ball came on a little bit better. I think it's going to be up for speculation.
Does this at all put in perspective, Sanjay, how India batted in their third innings? When they too were perhaps eyeing 210, 220 and saying, that's going to be plenty. That's certainly the impression we were getting.
Excellent question, because when the test match finishes, then you sort of look at the whole scenario, starting from the first innings that India, played. They won the toss, elected to bat first, so they lost the initiative there when they just got 202 runs on the board. failures galore in their batting lineup. So after that, they allowed a weakened South African team to come back into the game, gave them a slender lead. And in the second innings now, you have to look at the innings of Pujara and Rahane slightly differently because these are guys who owed India runs. And they got 50s, which is great, back in form, good enough to keep places in sight. But guys with that kind of an experience, just like Dean Elgar, could they not have gone on to get a bigger score? An 80 or a 90 or a 100, because that is what they owed the Indian team. And then the target would have been beyond the reach of the South Africans. So that's one way to look at it. But yes, the pitch played a little better in the sense because of the rain. What happened is every time the ball didn't kick, it was coming onto the bat nicely and going off the bat nicely as well. So batting became a little easier because of the rain.
Do you share that view, Daryl, that perhaps we were too kind to the batters as this test match went on? Or do you believe that perhaps India should have made more of a fight of a target of 240?
Well, they came out aggressively, and that was their intent, believing in the circumstances. And one can't fault it. I would have agreed with it. They needed to be attacking as such. But like all test matches, if you look back on, you can almost track an hour or two or even less there, or that particular session where we needed another 20 or 13 variables where you won or lost the game. But I thought India were too loose. And in that first test match, I know it was the towel. I believe India had the upper hand there. They lost, I think, in their first innings, 7 wickets for 30, 40 runs. But that's then. But I can't help thinking, and they carried it over, that there's a certain looseness about not that disciplined, hard grind of Test cricket. Perhaps missing Virat was a big role. He sets the tone in that regard. But I think India have only got themselves to blame. They had their opportunities in this Test match. And it worries me a bit with the coach was a great batsman about what the approach is at times in terms of their batting. And they'll look back on this and say, guys, come on. Newlands is a different kettle of fish. I don't know if we're going to touch on that. Perhaps we'll come the third test match. But India, I can only look back on this with regret. It was there for the taking. Maybe there was overconfidence. They'll only know. But South Africa on the back foot, let's not forget that for most of the test match.
Yes. Would you go with that, Sanjay? That if you talk about the first feeling or emotion as to where India lost this, you'd be thinking now they didn't bat as well as they could have in both innings. Maybe they could have even outbatted South Africa from this contest in the third innings. Or do you say, nah, we've also got to look at the bowlers. They didn't bowl as well as they could have in the fourth.
I think we have to talk about 202 batting first. India could have done a lot better and shut South Africa out of the test match, considering the kind of batting lineup that they have. But closer to the finish of the game, I've realized one very important thing, which I was talking to you off air, and I'd like Daryll also to listen to me because most of the time he's not listening to what I say. He doesn't care about what I have to say about the game. So Daryll, I thought one of the tactics that India have to look at is the lines Shami, Bumrah, and Shardul bowled. If you notice today, every ball was in the stumps and right through almost the test match. There is a line that you can bowl on South African pitches, especially when you've got only 240 runs to defend, which is the line outside the off stump. Now that creates a different challenge to the batter because he's then thinking, especially with people like Bumrah, should I play this one or leave that one? Now that challenge was taken away from the batter because everything was coming into the stumps. And if the ball didn't do much, there were runs to be had. Look at the economy rates of all the seam bowlers. So when the ball didn't kick or jag around, Bumrah's ball didn't jag around at all in this test match. Shami, not as much. Only Shardul was getting the ball to deviate off the pitch. So that meant that the challenge for the batters was easy. The ball was coming into the stumps. All they had to do was put bat to ball. And today that really worked beautifully. I'd like to see the team management review India's line of attack because Bumrah, especially with the kind of return that he's getting, and because there's no response from the pitch, that line outside the off-stump has great advantages because the batters, forced to leave those balls and those become dot balls. And there'll be some ball that will come back into the stumps and those are the ones that he has to play. That's a line that will get you wickets. It needs a little bit of patience, but more importantly, you don't leak runs too much. And when you have a low score on the board, I can understand 500, 600, you keep attacking the stump. Low score, they have to look at that line of bowling outside the off stump and waiting patiently for the wicket to come. I mean, hardly any slip catches.
Daryl, anything to add to that?
Well, I think Sanjay makes a very good point there, Sanjay, but I didn't quite hear it, but I'll elaborate on it. But no, but let's go back to why I say it's a good point. Let's go back to when South Africa bowled yesterday,
Hmm.
and India got ahead. Remember, the runs were flowing easy. Jansen and Giddy open. Then Rabada came in with Olivier, and they did exactly what you're saying. They allowed the wicket to do the job. They built pressure from both ends, and we saw the results. And yes, I think they changed their lengths and used the short ball more against the Indian batsmen. But it's remarkable when you think of Bumrah took one wicket on a test match where the wicket was not playing well. Invariably, isn't it true when the ball's staying down more, then you look to go straighter? But I think we also said, we mentioned, I think I clearly remember mentioning that India thought weren't patient enough, almost as they're expecting things to happen. Maybe that was the instruction. But doesn't it also go back to the bowling side, the information from off the field? Has Rahul missed the trick? Or did Rahul on the field? Or whatever. But I agree, they seem to believe and think that things were just going to kind of happen. Instead of getting back to playing that patience game, often when the ball's going past the back, bowlers tell you they want to come straighter. They're not finding the edges, doing much. But ultimately, what brings wickets, good or bad wickets, you try to build pressure from both ends. And I thought they weren't smart enough. South Africa got these runs far too easy. They had to have made South Africa work so much harder for these runs. And I think it comes back to what I said earlier about India's mindset. I thought they were just too loose in too many basic factors of Test cricket. And one of them is being consistent in your lines and lengths. South Africa had to make the running to win the Test match, to square the series. Newlands has often been a draw. Why do you have to go chasing it? Let them chase it.
Sanjay?
Just one point, I think Daryll made an excellent point about if the pitch was such like you have in Australia at Adelaide, day 5, the ball really shoots along the ground, where the only variation that you see is the ball keeping low. Here, the variation and the the surprise element for the batter was the ball kicking from a leg, rising, not keeping low. There were not too many balls that were keeping low. All the more reason that you don't attack the stumps so much. If India would do that whole thing again, and just imagine Bumrah he started off actually with the new ball, keeping that ball outside the off stump, and then perhaps overconfidence, perhaps over eagerness to just get these batters out and started attacking the stumps, but the ball wasn't doing much for them outside the off stump. Patience, and I'm sure the wickets would have come and would have come at a much lesser cost. So it's something that India really have to look, especially just with Bumrah, not so much maybe Mohammad Shami and Shardul Thakur, but Bumrah has to start looking at that line outside the off stump as a stock line, and then the odd ball coming back into the stumps.
I like that the two of you make that point, because watching as a viewer too, I thought that that sense of, oh, India's bowlers are going to run through South Africa's batting, with the evidence of what we've seen, this is not going to be hard. If anything, maybe the tail is going to be the challenge, but the top order they'll just run through. So whether it was a sense of overconfidence or maybe underestimating the South African batting, did you also, Sanjay, at any point feel like tactically today India were a bit off? They started with Ashwin. There was a deep point quite early for Bavuma, which we've seen many captains tend to employ. But looking at the match situation, could they have done anything more to just tighten things up?
No, this is the modern way. I don't mind having a guy at deep point for a new batter. He gets a single, gets off the mark, but it's not like, suddenly he feels that, wow, I'm in. So that is something that captains are okay to concede, because the last thing they want, with especially bowlers that are not your first choice bowler. Ashwin, clearly, as we saw as the match went along, wasn't their first choice bowler. So that kind of a bowler needs a little bit of protection. Tactically, I think Rahul did what most new captains would do. He would go to guys who have the pedigree. So there was a lot of Bumrah without him getting too many wickets. There was a lot of Shami. There was a bit of Shardul Thakur. The big stories as well about what this team thinks of Ravichandran Ashwin, the way he was used. So tactically, with the bowling changes, I don't have too many issues. But when watching the game, all I'm seeing is all the seam bowlers coming in, bowling into the stumps, and the batters just had to put back to ball. If the ball didn't do anything, runs galore. And if that line outside the off stump would have been employed, that would have added another dimension to that run chase and would have been really the game changer for me.
All right, fascinating conversation. This now, does this in some way, depending on the result, Daryl, vindicate South Africa's selections going into this test? A batter light. Maharaj was again pretty much invisible with ball, but Razi van der Dusen has put his hand up. Keegan Peterson in the first innings has put his hand up. Dean Elgar's played a match-winning inning. So have they got this right now? Would you advise the same sort of balance for Cape Town, or no? Have they got away with one and they need to check that?
Well, down in Cape Town, you're going to play the spinner. That's
Hmm.
always been the case. We must never forget that South Africa have transformation targets to get to that they have to comply with. So that does often affect the balance of the side. But I can't see anything changed. The spinner was always going to be doubtful. Had India, should they have played a fifth seamer? I think we called for it. I didn't select the spinner for South Africa to play. And we saw they literally played no role in terms of this test match. But I can't see South Africa changing come Cape Town. It's the right mix. I'm sure Maharaj will get into it better. Maybe he's not as confident, but a spinner definitely has a big role to play at Newlands.
And what about the same thing for India, Sanjay? Where does this leave India's think tank? Pujara and Rane with runs, Vihari with decent contributions, playing Test cricket after a long time, and with the imminent return of Virat Kohli, what happens now?
I've actually not given a thought to it. So I'll
Hmm.
be sort of just answering off the cuff, but uh, it's a tough one. I mean, is it fair to leave Vihari out again? Or maybe because of the batting issue that happened, Virat Kohli comes in, batting looks okay. I don't want to change too many things, but if Ashwin is going to be used in this fashion, then maybe they could start looking at somebody, who is a batter and strengthen that, give extra cover to the batting lineup. But as Daryl says, if Newlands has something for the spinners, Ashwin is good enough to command a place in the side. But I hope they don't drop Vihari. And I'm not going to suggest anything radical. But look at Pujara Rahane again over their contribution in the series so far, the four innings, and take a call on them.
Yeah.
But dropping Vihari would be very convenient. And as they say, going after a soft target.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe we'll save these conversations for our preview when we do it in a couple of days. Before I leave, although Daryl brought up the point of course, Virat Kohli's absence, perhaps as a batter. Wonder, Sanjay, if at all after this innings you missed Virat Kohli, the captain, the leader. Remember how India managed to get those 20 wickets in a test match in England when they were battering against time or fighting against time. Did they miss Kohli, the captain, here?
Uh, Virat Kohli, the batter, definitely. The captain, I've always believed tactically, Virat Kohli
Hmm.
hasn't been the greatest. His team selections, the playing 11 that he picks is his weakest sort of side. Picking the talent for any particular test match, that has been his weakness. But his great strength has been to keep that spirit,
Yeah.
alive on the field. That I'm going to win this. And that's something the opposition feels as well. Sometimes they must be wondering, I mean, this looks like an easy win for us, but why are these guys so gung ho about, winning this match? And that is the kind of spirit that Virat Kohli has. And it often defies logic, where you can see that India is staring at defeat. I mean, there are so many matches in recent time where they were looking at losing the game, the World Test Championship against New Zealand, the finals. But Virat Kohli just keeps that belief alive, and that is what he brings to the team. KL Rahul is slightly different, but I don't think that was the reason that
Yeah,
India
sure.
lost, because they didn't have the spirit of Virat Kohli, the leader.
Yeah, fair enough. And it's Rahul's first test as captain. Daryl, anything to add to that though? Because it felt like India got a bit flat too soon, or was that just because of
No,
conditions in
no,
South
I'm
Africa?
with Sanjay.
Hmm.
They didn't play good cricket. They didn't play the
Yeah.
cricket that they know they should have played. Look, it's smart to be. It's easy to be smart in hindsight, but did they miss Ishan Sharma? We spoke about a bowler with the ability to really be consistent in lines and lengths. I think that may
Mm.
be consideration for them come Newlands, but the ability to really build pressure is first and of paramount importance in Test cricket.
Hmm.
So they've got. I think they have got some selection poses. Do you change the batting order? I don't think so. You bring in a guy that's been on the bench. How much cricket has he played? You've got to back the guys that you have. And the important thing is that they've just got to play tougher Test cricket, value their
Hmm.
wickets more, and just look at how to build pressure instead of believing it's all going to kind of happen.
All right.
Ronald, please bear with me. I know you
Yes,
want to
please,
wind it
Sanjay.
up, because Daryl has this knack of bringing out really interesting points. And out
Hmm.
of the blue,
Up
he's
for
thrown
Test
Ishan
cricket.
Sharma in. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's thrown Ishan Sharma's name in. What Ishant Sharma would have got is a little bit of control. We were talking about patience, runs coming at a fair clip quite easily. Ishant Sharma would have controlled that. So when India are looking to play three or four seamers, they've got to look at the balance and the nature of the seamers as well. Shardul Thakur is a wicket taker. He's never going to be economical. Bumrah is also looking for wickets. Shami, a wicket taker, will leak runs. Mohammad Siraj is the same as well. So maybe somewhere they need one seam bowler like Ishant Sharma to just control things, keep it quiet, and let the wickets come as we were advocating earlier. So maybe there is a fit there somewhere for Ishant Sharma in the whole combination that India have with their seam bowlers.
In fairness, though, this you're saying is a lesson or a takeaway after this test, and not necessarily what they should have gone in for this test. Because there was, I don't think there was any way you were going to change the bowling attack after the first test, right? Sanjay, Siraj was always going to play ahead of Ishant.
Yes, and we've been talking about Ishant Sharma, looking like he's past his prime and not getting enough, out of the pitch. But this combination worries me. Shami, Bumrah, Siraj, Shardul. Shardul deserves to play. And look at him now as a guy, a third seamer or a fourth seamer, but a wicket taker, a partnership breaker. And we saw a nice graphic during the coverage as well as to how he's done that in the series. But you need somebody who can do that holding job, or maybe Bumrah can become that one with the line outside the off stump.
All right. Well, let's be fair. India were metaphorically and literally hamstrung with Mohammad Siraj's hamstring. So they lost a bowler there in that last innings. If it could have made a difference, we never know. But it sets this series up brilliantly. So it's 1-1 with all to play for at Cape Town. Daryll, Cullinan, Sanjay, Manjrekar. I'm glad to have the two of you for that too. So take a few days off, play some golf, Daryll, Sanjay. Enjoy what's left of your trip in the United States. And we hope to see you back in readiness for that Newlands test. Thank you, gentlemen. Always a pleasure
Thank you.
talking with both Daryll Cullinan and Sanjay Manjrekar. Join us then for that third test. Preview content for it will be on the site, of course, and there'll be a polite inquiries to look out for with Firdaus Munda and myself in the next day or so. So we'll see you then. Terrific test match. Well done to Dean Elgar in South Africa.